Hey everyone, it's Steve here, and welcome to a video that I decided to make to talk with you about my top 20 favorite movies um, of all time. Now, uh, real quick, I just want to say, I know it's been a long time since I've made any videos. I apologize for that. You can insert my random lame excuse in here at any point you want. I have no excuse. I could make one up, but I don't have one. I just haven't done it. I haven't felt like doing it. Um, and so I apologize for that. And so for this to be the first video that I've done in several months, I believe, please don't think that this is going to turn into a top 10 channel, or there's way too many of those. I just wanted to talk about movies for a bit, because in addition to video games, I also have a very strong passion for film, and how powerful movies can be and how they can affect me. And so I've never put my top favorite movies in order before. It's really hard to do. I can say that these are my top 20 favorite movies, but to put them in an actual order is really hard, and I don't know if I'm fully committed to the numbering of this list, but I'm going to do it. But just with the knowledge that they may shift around in place a little bit here and there, but nothing major. So this is just a one-time thing. I'm probably going to have to split this up into parts because, as you know, I ramble a lot, and if I'm going to be talking about 20 movies, that's probably going to be a really long video, and we don't want that. So, and when I say long, I mean I'm probably, well, we'll see how it goes, but I'm probably would assume this is going to take at least an hour, if not more, to get through. If I even do it all in one sitting, I might not. I might break it up a bit. So that's what this is, just to talk with you guys about movies, and hopefully I can get some feedback from anyone who's watching and get their opinions on this list of mine. What I like about my favorite movies is that I didn't have like a checklist where I'm like, okay, I've got to have a comedy, I've got to have a drama. These are just my favorite 20 movies, and it just so happens that there's a little bit of everything in there. I've got some drama, I've got some comedy, I've got some horror, I've got some sci-fi, fantasy. It's like it's a really nice collection of different genres, if you will. And it's not like I planned it to be that way. It's just, this is what it is. These are the movies that I like. So, spoilers, I'm going to do my best to avoid spoilers, but honestly, a lot of these movies are old. I mean, at least 10 years old, if not more. So, I'm not really going to throw up a spoiler warning, because if you haven't seen these movies yet, or if I get to one and you haven't seen it, then you might want to hop ahead to the next one, just in case. I mean, I don't like spoilers. I don't like having things ruined. I don't want to do that to anybody. So guess I'm just going to throw the spoiler warning on here for all of these movies, because I'm probably going to get into detail about them. So, without further ado, top 20 favorite movies. I might do like 5 at a time, see how long that takes, and we'll go from there. So, let's get started. Alright, so starting off with number 20. I don't know if I should like hold these up like really close to the camera or not. I'm going to say right off the bat, I thought about inserting clips from the movies into this video. A, way too much work for lazy ass me, and B, then you're dealing with copyright issues, and I'm not going to go there. So, it was a nice thought, but I quickly dismissed it. Anyway, starting off, number 20. T2, Terminator 2. The reason that it's at the bottom of the list is because I acknowledge the fact that it is just a mindless action movie. Not mindless, but it's an action movie. And action movies aren't usually big on having much of a plot, which I cannot say about this. This is the action movie. I think it's an action movie that other action movies aspire to be. It is kind of the quintessential 90s action movie. At the time that it was made, it was the most expensive movie ever made, which I'm not saying that that's a reason to like it, but the original Terminator was very groundbreaking, still a classic, but Terminator 2 just went beyond. It went not just one step beyond, it went so far beyond in the action movie genre. Um, um, it's kind of my guy movie. If I just want to see an action movie with things exploding and chase sequences, I mean, this is the movie that I'm going to go to. Um, it's just a quotable movie. Hasta la vista, baby. I mean, I'll be back. All of your quintessential Arnold Schwarzenegger lines are in there. It's also kind of lower on the list because I admit that Eddie Furlong irritates me. It's his voice and his whininess. Um, Eddie Furlong just really grates on my nerves, and unfortunately, it's like probably the hugest minus to me about this movie that just really detracts from my 100% enjoyment of it, is listening to Eddie Furlong's whining little voice. But you've got Linda Hamilton, total badass. The transformation of her character from the first to second movie is amazing. You know, in the first movie, she doesn't know what's going on, and all this information and trouble is thrust upon her, and she is just kind of your average everyday person. And now in this movie, she has that knowledge of what the future holds, and she's preparing for it. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is the hero in this one. In the original Terminator, he's the villain, and then in this movie, he is reprogrammed to be the hero, and that's an interesting twist. There are some touching things about it. The fact that the Terminator becomes this kind of surrogate father to John Connor is touching. The ending in which Arnold Schwarzenegger now has to basically kill himself, you know, in order to end this all once and for all, and John Connor basically begging him not to do it and ordering him not to do it. It is touching, but it's an action movie, and that's what it's for. CGI. Let's talk about CGI real quick. I am not anti-CGI. I feel like it's a useful tool to enhance things or to create things that you could not possibly do any other way. And you'll see in some of my movies that I picked here, there is CGI. So I'm not anti-CGI. I just feel like in today's movies it's overused. It's used way too much. Where to the point now that like nothing on the screen is real anymore in a lot of movies. And it's just sad to see. I'm a huge fan of practical effects. But in regards to this movie, there is CGI. In its earliest stages, we didn't have many movies that really utilized CGI to this effect. And I don't think that this is planned, but I think it's very clever that they made the T-1000, you know, a liquid Terminator, because we had movies like The Abyss that used that kind of technology of making a liquid creature. I think that if they had gone a different route with the T-1000, a lot of CGI from back in the day looks dated today. It looks really bad. But in this movie, it still holds up. It still works because I don't want to call it a simple technique, because I'm sure that it wasn't at the time. But to use a technique, in this case, the liquid and the liquid metal, it makes it still hold up today. Because it's not an overly detailed CGI image like we see a lot of today, and it holds up. You don't look at it and kind of cringe like I do with some other older movies in the early days of CGI that just look atrocious by today's standards. It holds up well. It's a classic action movie, and if you just want, like I say, to see things blowing up, and it does have a story. I guess that's the thing, is that from an action movie point of view, it does have a story, which a lot of action movies don't have. There's that time travel element. We'll talk more about time travel later on, and you probably know what movie I'm going to talk about in the future. But anyway, for Terminator 2, solid action movie, probably the action movie, and it's the one that I always go to when I want to see an action movie. All right, number 19, Pulp Fiction. Gosh, what can I say about Pulp Fiction? this is the reason I love this movie is that, again, it's lower on my list because of there's not much substance to it. But what's brilliant about this movie, the dialogue, the characters. I always appreciate when a filmmaker can take characters who should not be likable in any way and make them likable and make them real and make them human. The characters in this movie are not nice people. They're really not. And yet, in the time that you spend with them, and you get to know them, and they become likable. Simply, and how's that done? Through the dialogue. The banter in this movie is spot on. If you can make a movie where two characters talk about cheeseburgers in a car, or if you can have them talk about a watch, or the significance of a watch, that's good. That's good in my opinion. You're taking everyday mundane things and you're working in this amazing dialogue about those things. The way that the story is told in this fragmented way, where the story is split up into chapters, if you will, but the chapters are shuffled around, so that the ending of the movie, comes earlier than it should. So the way that it's told in that structure, the dialogue, the amazing performances. John Travolta is an actor who was off the radar. This movie brought him back. The amazing Samuel L. Jackson, who has just a presence on screen. The beautiful Uma Thurman, amazing talent. Bruce Willis. It's a great cast. An amazing dialogue, witty banter. People talking about the most mundane things in these extreme circumstances. Two hitmen discussing it amidst how to deal with a dead body in their car, and they're talking about coffee. It just doesn't get any better than that. Again, I put it lower on the list because there is no real deep meaning, as far as I'm concerned, to this movie. It is just a series of events in these people's lives, with just some amazing acting and some incredible dialogue, quotable dialogue that will stand the test of time for sure. So, number 19, Pulp Fiction. Okay, number 18. This is the newest movie on this list. I really struggled with this one, if I should even put it on the list at all, because it is so new. It just came out, I believe, last year. I struggled with it because I've only seen it twice. I rented it once and then I bought it. And so I didn't know if it was worthy of being on my top 20 movies of all time. But when I tell you that I was affected by this in a very profound way, I knew that it had to be on the list somewhere, and it might even belong higher, but I put it down at 18 simply because it's new and I've only seen it twice. It would be Manchester by the Sea. The only thing I knew about this going in was that it was up for all kinds of Academy Awards and Best Actor, and I usually don't fall into that hype when it comes to that kind of thing. But it was one of those movies that all you heard was, "Oh, you've got to see this movie." So I passed it by, like in a video store. On the cover is like a picture of a man and a woman, and they're looking kind of sad. And the cover of this movie screams love story, romance story, and I don't play that. Do I actually have like a? I do actually have a somewhat love story movie on my list. We'll get to that later, but I passed it up. This cover is very misleading. It makes you think that it is a love story or a romance movie. It's not in any way. I rented it and I watched it, and the next day I think I went out and I bought it. Again, I don't want to give away spoilers, of course. Let's just say that the movie is about a man whose brother passes away, and in the will, his brother's will, he has left his teenage son He wants his brother to be his son's guardian if anything should happen to him. So his brother dies, and now this man is left being the guardian of his teenage son. And that's your basic plot. It is so much more than that. This is one of the most depressing, yet powerful, perfectly acted movies that I've seen in a long time. This is a movie about grief. This is a movie about depression, and it's portrayed in a very realistic way. There are flashbacks. Usually I'm not too big on flashbacks in movies. It's done very effectively here. You know, you first meet the main character, and he's not the most likable person, and you don't quite know, what's happened to him to make him this way. And then through flashbacks, you find out exactly what happened, and you get a better understanding of why he is the way he is, and you feel for this guy, and other characters in the movie. You feel for them. It's a tragic movie. It is a depressing movie. If you're not ready to be depressed, then probably don't watch it. But if you're looking for a very sad movie, I cannot recommend this movie enough. It deals with grief and depression in the most realistic way that I've seen yet in a movie. The acting is flawless. It's very understated. Characters speak and act in a very real way. The way that it's filmed, sometimes, not always, but a lot of times, the camera is very far back from the characters. So it gives the viewer a feeling of, I feel like I'm eavesdropping on these people. I feel like I'm overhearing a personal conversation that they're having that I shouldn't be listening to. I should probably, move on and let them have their private moment. The moments in this movie are very private feeling and very personal, and you almost feel as if you shouldn't be watching it, as if you were like passing somebody on the street and overheard a conversation going on over here that seemed really deep and personal. That's the way this feels. Some moments you don't even get to see, and yet you know exactly how they played out. You got a pretty good idea of what happened during that conversation. Even though we never see it, we know how that went. I don't know what awards it won, but whatever it did win, it deserves them all. I can see this movie going up higher on my list as the years go on, and the more I watch it. But for now, I kept it at number 18, simply because of how new it is. It's the newest movie on this top 20 list of mine. And so I kept it down there because of that fact only. Realistically, I can see it going higher up on my list. If you're kind of feeling down, you want to watch a sad movie, I don't know if you should watch it when you're depressed, because it's only going to make you more depressed. I think that Hollywood likes to wrap things up in a pretty bow at the end. You got to have that happy ending. There's no happy ending here, and there's not a terrible ending. There's just an ending, and it's a powerful one, and it makes you think, and it makes you wonder what is going to happen after the credits roll. I mean, you know what's going to happen, but you want more. I actually found myself wanting to see more. There are just amazing performances. This is acting. To me, this is acting. And I guess that's all I can say about number 18, which is Manchester by the Sea. Alright, coming in at number 17, an oldie but a goodie. We're going to dip into the horror realm a little bit here with the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Gosh, it came out in 1984, so I would have only been 10 years old when I saw this. I couldn't tell you how long I couldn't sleep for, and how much trouble I had sleeping, and how much this movie haunted me as a child. If you've never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, don't bother with any of the sequels. As a kid, I enjoyed them, but in hindsight, looking back, they were comedies. They were really comedies. This movie is not. The concept, I'm sure everyone knows, because Freddy Krueger is such an iconic horror villain, is that there is a child murderer who has been killed by the parents of the kids that he was killing, and now he has become something more. He has become a creature that can infiltrate your dreams and kill you in your dreams, and if you die in your dream, you die in real life. That concept alone is terrifying because we all need to sleep. When you deal with other kind of 80s slasher villains, you know, they're real. You know, you can run away from them. You can maybe even kill them. This is something different because this is a monster that lives in your dreams, and only there. Well, that's not true per se, but as we get into later movies, and even at the end of this one, I don't think I need to talk too much about Freddy Krueger. He is, to me, the most iconic movie villain of all time. Everything about the premise of who he is and what he is, his weapon of choice, that glove with the knives on it, that creepy hat, the burned face. What's really good about this original movie is that he is kept kind of in the shadows. You know, you do see him, but it's very dimly lit a lot. You'll see him in shadow. You'll see him in silhouette, which to me is always creepier. It's always creepier to me to have things be hinted at and to not actually have things in your face and showing them to you. There's a couple moments in this movie that still, the images that still, as an adult, creep me out. Particularly, Nancy falls asleep in school, and in her dream she goes into Freddy's boiler room. He's chasing her. He's got her cornered in the boiler room. There's in a little dead end area where there's no way out, and he just slowly comes around the corner again, almost in silhouette, and just toying with her and slowly moving towards her and scraping those knives across the pipes. That image still chills me to the bone. I am a fan of horror movies. If they're done well, this is one that's done well. Another interesting point is to see Johnny Depp. This is Johnny Depp's first movie. You know, to see this young, like almost teenage Johnny Depp in this thing, and of course, you know, we all know what happens to him in the movie. So it's interesting from that point of view. Wes Craven, who directed this movie and who created it, created a horror movie legend. And like I said, the sequels turned into comedies. There's really nothing scary about them at all. I would avoid them completely. If you've never seen any of them, watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street. It was and is one of the scariest movies concepts that I've ever seen in a film. And it caused me many a sleepless night, I can assure you of that. So, yes, so number 17, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, moving on, number 16 is The Green Mile. It is a movie based off of a Stephen King book. Actually, the way that the book was released is kind of interesting, in that like one chapter was released, you know, like once a week, once a month, something like that. Once a month, I think. I remember buying them at the time one by one to get the whole story. Then, of course, it was made into a movie. You know, the great Tom Hanks is in here. He appears elsewhere on my list, actually I think pretty soon, but we'll get to that. The Green Mile. The reason, and this is an amazing movie, it's a very emotional movie, it's a very sad movie, and the only reason it's lower on my list is, I mean, actually, I'm already rethinking my ordering right now. I probably would put Nightmare on Elm Street above this, technically, but is that there's a supernatural element to it. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But basically what we have here is a man on death row convicted of killing 2 little girls, and we find out that he is innocent. And all of the moral dilemmas that the guards at the prison have to go through, knowing that this man is innocent, and yet it is their job to kill him. And I say it's lower on the list because of that supernatural element that's present. I think it would have been a much better movie, and even it's based on the book, so I know that it's in the book too. But if that was removed and it was simply the case of a innocent man on death row, and the guards kind of struggling with that knowledge. But there is that supernatural element to it. He's able to like magically heal people. Basically it's toward the end there. It's when the character's name is John Coffey, the big huge guy who looks like he could like rip your head off, and yet he's the most gentle soul, who's afraid of the dark and who would clearly never hurt a fly. And to see him strapped into that electric chair and Tom Hanks crying because he knows that this man is innocent is just beyond touching and sad, and raises the question, what would you do? I mean, I think if I were Tom Hanks in this position, I would probably, I mean, it wouldn't change the outcome. I'd say that I would quit my job, but I guess that wouldn't change the outcome. One way or another, this innocent man is going to be executed, and there's nothing that they can do about that. So I guess it raises the point of, would you be there for someone in their final moments, as just a reassuring face for them to say that, hey, I know that you're innocent and I'm sorry about this? Or would you rather have a complete stranger who thinks he's guilty do it? Would you have the ability to do that, to put aside your own feelings and your own, I want no part of this, and could you put that aside and be there for someone who needs you at their last moment? Beautifully directed, beautifully acted, and if it weren't for the magical healing powers that John Coffey possesses, it might be higher up on the list. It kind of takes me out of the story a little bit whenever there's that element put in. But it is a part of the story though, so it is what it is. It needs to be in there. I guess the effect of him like sucking the illness out of people is a little, which again, it's what happens in the book, so I understand why it's in here, but certainly not the best prison movie. We'll get to that one later, and again, I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, but for right now, The Green Mile is worthy of being on this list somewhere. Didn't quite know where to put it. I'm not like overly passionate about it, but I knew that it belonged on here somewhere, so we're going to put it at number 16, and we'll leave it there. Alright. I looked at the time when I started, but I forgot what time it was. I want to say I've been talking for like a half hour. I don't want these to be too long. It would take way too long to put all 20 movies into one video. I feel like, I don't know, that there's some that I'm more passionate about than others, and I'm already questioning my placement in order of where these movies should fall. I think where you're really going to see me get even more passionate is as we get closer, up the list. But so far, the 5 movies that we've talked about, I feel very strongly about. One being a horror classic, one being a very powerful, emotional, depressing drama, one being a full-blown action movie, one being a very funny, when it really shouldn't be, kind of mob mentality. I feel like already we're covering a very broad spectrum of movies, and that's what this is all about. So I will see you next time for numbers 15 through 10, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 15 through 11. I'll see you for those. Everyone take it easy, have a good day, peace, and I will see you for part 2 of this. Bye.